Good morning, how you doing? Michael, the fixed operations here at the world famous Harley-Davidson of Indianapolis. Welcome to our live Facebook build of a Screaming Eagle 131 kit. Today I'm here with my shop foreman, lead technician, master technician, Chris Booth. Chris, introduce yourself.
Chris.
There's
been
Chris.
Here 15 years, 16 years, something like that. It's been a long time.
Chris been here with the dealership, like he said, about 16 years. He's been turning wrenches for over 20. So today we're going to start off explaining to you what's going into this 131 build. As you can see, we have all our parts laid out here on the table, and Chris and I are going to explain what goes into this 131 kit. Chris?
Well, it's really a lot easier when you get it ripped apart so you can see the huge differences, but obviously we've got much bigger cylinders here, okay, to get from, this is a 114 stock, as you can see, we're going to a 131, so we've got to have much bigger piston cylinders. So we got that. We got the camshaft. It's another very critical part when you're building any motor. There's no such thing as a bad cam, just bad combinations. But Harley has spent a lot of money on R&D, so they've got their combinations down where they need them to be. We've got the lifters that are going to go along with the cam and the cam compartment. We've got the cylinder heads, which I believe those are CNC factory ported.
Yep.
Cylinder heads, which if you're not familiar with like factory porting, if you look inside there, you know, it's all nice and machined, okay? That allows for air to flow extremely well. Much faster than, say, stock heads. We got a throttle body. That is a combination with all of that because the throttle body is going to allow more air and fuel to get into the cylinder.
As you can see, this is a 64 millimeter throttle body. So
Comes with bigger injectors. We've got the injectors right there.
Yep.
Those will go in there. Cam bearing. There's cam bearing here that comes in the kit. A lot of people will overlook this. It's a very important part. This bearing itself has got rollers all the way around. The stock bearing that comes in these bikes actually has a cage in there. So you'll have a roller and then a cage and then a roller. So this is it's more of a high performance bearing, can carry more of a load. I always replace those. Doesn't matter what I'm working on. If I'm in the cam compartment, you've got to replace those. It's a, what, $10 part?
Yep.
$10 or $20 part, and if that fails, it can ruin your day.
So, and explain to them about the pistons here. These are the 4.5-inch Screaming Eagle piston kits, obviously, so you can see the dish and the top of the pistons. So they're a very critical part of the build. The header.
Yeah, this is a header that is strictly for the 131 kit. You have to run this header on the bike. Harley says that they don't want you running an auto-tune module, so the bungs in here are for the stock two sensors. I don't even think they have a map for the 131, the auto-tune module. It does have a catalytic converter in it. That's part of being EPA friendly. This whole kit here will actually keep the bike within factory warranty, so we don't have to worry about that, but it does have to have a catalytic converter on it to maintain the EPA emission standards.
So once again, installing this kit on your bike will not void your factory warranty as long as it's done here or done at a certified dealership with the the Screaming Eagle Super Tuner. So you will not void your warranty, and you could actually get the coverage for if your bike is under an ESP, you actually get ESP coverage for the kit.
Actually, this bike has like 3 or 4 months of warranty left, and we're going to be able to add it.
We're going to add this this gentleman's bike. Yeah, like he said, this bike's got a couple months left on his warranty, and as Harley has currently extended the custom coverage. So if you have a bike that's currently under warranty and you have some custom Screaming Eagle parts installed on it, we'll put that on your SWR. I believe it's up until the beginning of April. So don't waste your time. If your bike is just about to run out, you can get that installed on there, and if you get ESP, all this will be covered under your ESP. So,
Yep.
All right.
Oh, and we got an oil cooler. It does come with an oil cooler. The oil cooler's got a fan on it. Air-cooled V-twin engine. It's always good to keep that oil as cool as possible. And then our cool 131 badge.
Yeah. Can't have a 131 build without that. It gives you your bragging rights right there. Or if you don't want it on there, you can
have a sleeper.
Have a sleeper.
leave it on. Leave that 114 badge on there, and yeah. We're good to go.
You'll be the king of your block with the sleeper. So, all right. So, as you can see, bike's right here. We did some initial tear down, took the tank off, got the bags off, got the exhaust off. So, and then we're going to dive into today. We're going to dive into disassembling the heads, get out the cam, get the cylinders off, and we'll be taking your questions. So, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We'll stop and we'll answer questions. All right.
We'll do our best.
All right. Let's get started.
All right. Let's do it. One of the things that we did do on this, you got the oil lines that run across the top of the motor. There's a line right here, and then there's 2 lines that come across the top of the motor, connect back here to they connect to the head on the front, the head on the back, and then this is the return line, drains back down into the crankcase. So there is oil in this. That's how they cool the cylinder heads. So in order to get this line off of here, we're going to lose some oil. When we disconnect it, we'll lose oil back here, we'll lose oil right here. Yesterday, I took this rubber hose off because you will lose a lot of oil if you just take that off and just let it drain. So there's a little trick where you can take this hose right here off, put some air to it, make sure your dipstick's unscrewed a little bit so that some of that air can vent. You hit it with some air and it kind of pushes some of that oil back up and through down into the motor so you don't lose it all out of the front. So we did that yesterday, so as to not make a mess out here. So let's see, I think we'll start by taking that off. Right now I'm going to take the stabilizer off. It's the front stabilizer link. And then in order to get, there's a bolt on the other side, right where this one's at, over on the other. And in order to get that one out, we'll actually have to kind of put the motor in a little bit of a bind. Well, so I got the jack underneath it. We'll kind of jack it up. Otherwise, we won't be able to get the bolt out of the other side.
As you can see, there's a lot that goes into it. Like I said yesterday, we get some of this assembled just to cut down on time so we can get into the nitty-gritty of taking the motor apart. But as you can see, just with the motor mounts and other things that have to be taken apart just so we can disassemble the complete cylinders, the head, everything. So it's just not a 1, 2, 3 job, and that's why we did what we did yesterday, just so we can get to where we are today.
Yeah, the M8s, there's a lot more to take off. You can be into twin cams a little bit faster. Is that wrench over there? You slide me that wrench. Yeah, I think it might be my second. Yeah.
This week?
You gotta be careful. This is that one that's really close to the frame. There it is. See that? We didn't even touch the frame.
As you can see, the precautions that we take by guarding the frame with tape on there, the fitment is really tight, so the technique's got to be as to not bar up the frame of the bike, and that's why we tape everything up there. Because the clearance is so minute, just to get those bolts out.
Yeah, some people use air. Nothing against air or power. I don't know, kind of old school. I like the feel of taking them out by hand, I guess.
As you can see now, he's taking out the upper link, come out. Then we'll be able to get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, we get this stabilizer link off of here, and then we can work on getting everything out of the way to get that oil line off. It's like a little puzzle. Just like that. Yes, sir. What kind of, well, you know what? Stay tuned and we will find out. might not be today. We will definitely probably do a dyno video after this. We're going to showcase it all.
Yeah, once we're done, we get the bike fully built, we're going to break it in on the dyno. Then we'll do a couple of dyno pools. Give you some exact numbers of what we're looking at.
Right now I'm disconnecting the knock sensors. The M8s have knock sensors in the cylinder heads. They get to pinging lean conditions. These sense that in the head and they will retard the timing as to not do engine damage. That's a compression release. You got compression releases in front and rear cylinder heads. So we got all that disconnected. So now we're going to take this bracket right here off. It's our horn bracket. Let's see, we did a baseline run yesterday on this. So 114 with just a stage 1, and we had 77 horsepower, and I believe it was 117 torque, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to get in his way.
Yeah, we don't want to hit that fancy thing there. There's a little zip tie on this wiring harness here. Just gotta get it pried out of there. It's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is kind of knowing where everything goes. You know, down to the zip tie, you know, pulling a bike apart. The guy that I learned from always, you know, talked about being able to do something like this, a 131 build, go inside this motor, take it apart, do what you're there to do, put it back together, and the next guy that's in there has no idea, you know, can't tell that you were there.
So one of the questions that someone asked is why he wasn't using air tools. And one of the reasons is, you know, some of the air tools, obviously, the fitment when you're working in these tight spots, the air wrench will fit in there. So you have to use, you know, common hand tools. As far as speed goes, it really doesn't, cause any issues as far as speed. I mean,
Yeah.
It's very efficient with its tools, obviously.
These are the injectors.
That's the reason why we don't use the air tools.
You got to disconnect the injector wires so we can get that oil line out this side. The oil line's got to come out this side, so the injector wires have got to be disconnected. I personally don't use air just because you could break bolts off, number one, and that creates a headache trying to get broken bolts out. A little bit further on disassembly, when we get over to the other side, there's a bolt that holds the tappet block. There's a little bracket or retainer that holds the tappets in place, and there's a bolt that goes down into the case, and I've broke probably 2 of those off by hand. You're taking them loose by hand. So if you use air, you're almost guaranteed. I think somebody that used to work here had to get a welder out and weld a nut to it so they could get it out. Brand new case. Actually, I think Brandon from Terre Haute, that's what they did to his, ruined his case that way. All right, so now we're ready to take the oil line loose. Got a little 3/8 swivel here. A lot of these bolts have dry lock patches on them when they go in at the factory. And so if you break those loose too fast, you can snap them right off.
And as you can see, the special tools he has, it's not, this is not just something you do with ordinary hand tools. All these technicians have special tools to get into these tight spots.
Yes, sir. Mr. Meadows. Yes, we will be using the Harley-Davidson Street Tuner. That's really the only option that we have anymore to keep it within warranty spec. Yeah, because the Screaming Eagle Pro Street Tuner will not pull it out of, say, EPA standards, EPA emission laws. It will basically let you go as far as you can without breaking the law, so to speak.
And still keep your warranty in effect.
Right.
So.
You know what I need? I need a fender cover. Oh, I need a fender cover, but I'll use this. Yeah. Well, then we might.
What's that tool called?
Well, which one? These right here. This is just a set of pliers for the crimp, the clamp that's right here. It's just like a hose clamp. Automotive uses it, I think. The other one is like a 3/8 swivel, a 1/4-inch swivel. Yeah. See, normally there'd be, how much oil we get out of there last night? Probably 6 or 8 ounces of oil that just dripped out of there. So that helped us not make a mess out here on the floor. Yeah. Yep. I took the dipstick and I unscrewed it just a little bit to vent it. Yeah, and it allowed that pressure to vent. You got to make sure you don't take the dipstick all the way out. Make sure you have it still threaded in there, because when you hit it with air, that dipstick will go flying across the room. And then when you get done, you got to make sure to tighten the dipstick back down before you get in the dyno. There's another clamp back here that we got to get at. Hopefully we brought some pliers out here. Oh, I need a set of pliers. Maybe. Yeah, is that door unlocked over there?
Yes.
Huh?
Should be, yes.
Can I get through there?
Yes.
I'm gonna go grab a set of pliers.
Okay, so Chris just had to step out for a minute to get some other tools. As you can see, he's got his tool cart behind him, but it's very hard to get all his tools out here with this big, big toolbox in the back. So he just grabbed a few, had to go run out and grab a few things.
You gotta be careful with this oil line. I'm gonna grip it, try to rotate it a little bit, but they'll stick. And if you're not careful, you can destroy this oil line. Yeah, I'm coming right there with you. Well, you got to get it from both sides here because I really don't want to break it.
Yeah, as you can see, you got to get that line off, and that's critical. So you got to take your time, get it from both sides, get it loose so he can remove it. Sometimes they just don't want to come off that easy.
Yeah, this one is going to be stubborn. Yes, sir. I have never really worked with a bike that has a supercharger on, I don't think. Turbos, we've done turbos. There she comes.
Just got to finesse it a little.
Is that not working?
You might have gotten out of. No, we should be on.
Technical difficulties. Man. That's what's going to happen. We're going to destroy this hose live on camera. It does not want to come loose.
So as you can see, these are some of the problems that the technicians run into, especially when working on a bike that has
Some miles on it. Been hot.
Been hot, cold, hot, cold. Those rubber hoses. At some point, you got to determine whether the hose is savable or we're just going to have to replace it.
There she's working. It's caught back here. Yeah. I don't think they want me to get the pry bar out on live camera. There it goes. Yep. See, that's what happens, you know. That thing did not want to come off of there, and now we will end up replacing it. But that's all right. We know how to do that.
So as you can see, once, you know,
Yes, sir.
this place got a couple thousand miles on it, and you
Yeah.
work it off, and then, you know, in the process, sometimes the end of the hose gets ruined. So we'll replace that during the build.
Oil pump press. Okay, well, what Harley has done with the M8 oil pump is there's a plate that goes on the back side of the oil pump, and they have redesigned that plate a few times that has like scavenge ports in it. They've changed the scavenge ports, they've changed the location of them, they've changed the depth of them, kind of the shape of them. And so yes, there is an oil pump plate that we will be putting into this because they've had a couple different generations of them. If you've got like a 2020, the 2020 already has it in there and you don't have to worry about replacing it. But if you've got like a 2017, 18, or 19, I believe it says right in the book that you need to replace it or upgrade it anyhow. When doing a stage 2, 3, or 4, you know, you're in there.
Yeah, and while we're in there, this is a 19, so we will be checking the oil pump. And, you know, part of the build is when we check the oil pump, if it doesn't have the latest and greatest in there, we will upgrade it as well as part of the build.
All right, so now we got all of our bolts out of our oil line. Let's break it loose there. There, it's loose back there. Break it loose up front here. Now we got to work this oil line out of here. Yeah, I mean, it happens. Most people don't see them. You know, you get to cuss back in the shop and nobody ever knows. There we go. There's our oil line, or oil lines. That has to come off before we can go any further. Can't get the rocker boxes off without that oil line being out of the way. And as you can tell, sometimes that oil line is a pain in the ass. Yeah, definitely. So now I think I'm going to move over to the other side. And we'll get the breather off. Thank you for what? I need to get a couple of those. There's our air filter. Just taking the air cleaner off, yeah, and I'm gonna get the throttle body out. This breather doesn't want to come off here either. Come on, honey. So,
did the 18 come with the same hydraulic clutch as the 17, or did it come with a new one when an upgraded one? Because apparently in 17 it was recalled.
well, they've had multiple clutch recalls over the years. We started out with recalls up at the master cylinder, which involved changing we rebuilt the master cylinders. Once or twice. We might have done 2 recalls on the master cylinder. And then we had a recall down here at the actuator. They had an issue with the assembly lube that they were using on the piston, because you got a piston sits in your actuator and that piston moves back and forth, hence the hydraulic clutch. There was an issue with the lube that they used to, and I don't know, assemble that. That had a chemical reaction with the transmission fluid and the .4, because you run .4 in these hydraulic systems. And so the .4 interacted with the assembly lube that they used on the piston, and the actuator that interacted with the transmission fluid was creating a chemical reaction, and I believe pushing air into the system, which air in a hydraulic system is no bueno. That doesn't work. So to answer his question, I would assume that what Harley did is they just fixed what was wrong, and the new model year had the recalled parts already in it. But when we got to 2021, it doesn't make any bit of difference because they got rid of hydraulic clutches on the baggers. 2021, we went back to cable clutches. So
Here's a loaded question.
a loaded question,
How do you feel about cables?
cable clutches? I like cable clutches myself.
I prefer them as well.
Yeah, I've never had an issue with cable clutches. Yes, the cables can break, but they're easily adjusted. You can adjust your, Bill Collins could tell you, the friction zone. There you go. And you can adjust that depending on riding capabilities, whether you want a lot of friction zone or you don't need a lot. I've got people that ride, the police officers or the people that do the events and stuff. They like to have a lot of clutch free play because they need that engagement right off of the handlebar. They don't need, any friction zone. So some of those you're putting a heavy eighth, sometimes almost, a light 1/4 inch of free play in one of those. And with a hydraulic clutch, you can't do that. And there our breathers off. This was a stage 1 breather. I say breather. Yes, it's an air breather, but the top end of the motor also breathes through these holes right here.
And as you can see, the difference in the throttle bodies, the size of the bore there, that just gives you an idea of what we're going to.
Not only that, but once we get this one off, you'll be able to see that where this one, is aluminum, this one is plastic. And they've had some issues with the plastic getting hot and kind of ovaling out, develop intake leaks and stuff. This is our throttle position sensor connector. This is our map sensor and our idle air control sensor now, idle. This one right here is our engine temp sensor. These are just some valve seal pliers. You go to the Harley classes and they recommend getting these for these M8s have actually got 4 spark plugs in them. You've got 2 plugs that are underneath the gas tank that you can't really get to. And Harley will tell you that if you don't use something like this to actually go down in here and get a hold of this plug wire at the base of it, you can destroy the plug wire. I'm just getting the spark plug wires kind of out of the way. I can put this one back here because it just helps get stuff out of the way. It gives us more room to work. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave this throttle body in here for just a little bit. You can take them out right now, especially if you were just replacing intake seals or something, you didn't have to go into the motor. But the way this is designed, you have to kind of come out and rotate it up to get it underneath these lower rocker boxes here. And so the throttle body is just much easier to get out on disassembly like this if you've got the lower rockers out of the way. So I'll leave it in there just out of sheer ease. So now I'm going to start taking out these rocker box bolts. Twin cams, we had 3 on this side and 3 on that side. So it wasn't that bad. The M8s, we have 10 bolts on each cylinder. So, and they do have Loctite on them and they are not fun, especially some of them back here. You can even use a 1/4-inch socket and you sometimes can't get on those. Snap-on sells a kit. Actually, I have it. Yeah, you can barely see in there. Yeah, shoot. Yeah.
He's considering a vented dipstick to help crankcase pressure.
Absolutely, that's always a good idea. I'm always a fan of relieving pressure.
So I guess since he sees more oil and breather than he likes, how do you feel about this? Or is it a band-aid to something larger with the M8s?
No, not necessarily. The first thing I would want to do is double check oil level. Oil level is critical. Even back to twin cams, oil level is critical. If you overfill these just by a little, the only place it has to go is out of the breathers. So it is going to settle in the bottom of your air filter and it is going to leak onto your cam cover and it's going to cause a mess. That can come from simply overfilling the bike. You know, not knowing that when you check the oil level, it needs to be hot. And when I say hot, I'm not talking about riding 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles. The oil in these things is not going to get hot until you've been riding at least 20 miles, you know, on an 80-degree day. You know, it takes a long time for the oil to get to operating temperature. So Harley actually came out with a bulletin and was telling us where to set the oil levels, dating all the way back to, I think it was 2008. And even to this day, I mean, while we're here, I'll go ahead and, that's what this is all about, right, is answering questions. So on these dipsticks, you've got a full hot on the Jiffy stand and you've got a full hot vehicle upright. So I'm not gonna, even when I change the fluids in these, I'm not gonna take it all the way to the full. I'll take it maybe a 1/4 inch or so below the full mark because we only ride these bikes 6 to 10 miles on test rides. So that the oil is not hot. So we will leave some room down there for that oil to expand. If you overfill the oil, number one, that can cause that issue. If you've got a cam or some motor work done, a vented dipstick is always a good. I vented my dipstick on my bike. I didn't buy one. The guy that I learned from, we took an old dipstick and we drilled a hole in it and we kind of fashioned one. But I know that I think Fueling sells them. Somebody else sells them. Huh? S&S. But yeah, I just put one on Juan's bike, his assault bike that Trask built. We installed one and it's really cool. It comes out and it's got a little filter on it. Those are always a good idea. But the first thing I would want to check is make sure our oil level's right. Yeah, this is the kit. This is the tool that Harley will tell you have to buy. It's a snap-on little ratchet kit here. All I need is that 7/16. This kit was like $325 and all I needed was that. And that will allow us to get in there to those bolts without damaging the frame, the rocker box, stuff like that. on oil pressure.
Do you see a benefit in an external breather upgrade, such like an HPI offers?
Again, that's venting. Yeah, an external breather. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't mind. And HPI knows their stuff. You know, they've been working with Indy cars for a long time. You know, if anybody knows how to go fast, especially here in Indianapolis, you know, those guys down on Gasoline Alley. So yeah, I would vent that. My Evo, when I had a Evo, I actually vented. I just ran a hose down to the ground instead of having that oil go through the air filter. I just vented it, you know, out to the ground. We'll start with the most difficult bolt first, right?
Oh man, they're just like, we've caused a trickle down effect. Rob Lowe, not that Rob Lowe, has a TC88 with a 95 kit and cam. He currently has an HD digital dipstick. Should he swap it out for vented or painted beef?
I don't think you can vent that digital one. I think there's there's probably some computer software you'd have to drill through.
That's all so you wouldn't be able to do that at all.
Yeah. Huh? That screw? Yeah. Yep. See, you can see the Loctite still on there. So all of these bolts have got that dry lock patch on there. So yeah, in this case, you will see some guys use air, you know, to blow these things out of there. I like the feel of it, because if this thing gets halfway out and gets really tight, I'm going to stop and kind of reevaluate. You know, maybe work it back and forth a little bit, because air, you can always just snap it off, and broken bolts are never fun.
And as you can see, we're about 30 minutes into the build here, and we're still disassembling. Because there is a lot of components that got to come off first before we get to the nitty-gritty of getting those cylinders off. There's a lot of work involved.
Yep. Switch to a 1/4 inch. Be careful, you don't want to get your ratchet stuck in there. Still a little dirty underneath here. We actually tried to help Kyle out. We didn't want him to be embarrassed when we were working on his bike, but it was filthy under here last night. We actually took it back in the wash bay and cleaned it up a little bit for him so that people didn't make fun of him. Just kidding, Kyle. We love you.
Another question for you. On the new bikes, is there a way for the screen to show oil pressure instead of just displaying OK?
You know, that's a great question. That would be a P&A question. I don't know. I have not installed that, but because that's all done through the infotainment system. And I think, yeah, all it does is it says oil pressure is like okay. I think it doesn't tell you how much oil pressure you have anymore. See, did you hear that? You don't like it when you hear that popping noise. Right, yeah, you're not going to hear that with an air ratchet. Oh, and I see what's happening. that's a stud right there on that center one. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to get a wrench. We're gonna have to hold that stud down there on the bottom side because it is wanting to turn with this bolt to come out. So you gotta reach in here, hold that. Might go back a little bit the other way just to make sure we're not breaking anything. See what I did is I just went back down, run that stud back down. Now I can try to take the bolt back out. And you know that smoke wrench you were talking about earlier? This bolt does not want to come out. I got a bad feeling. I gotta be careful not to get my socket stuck in there. Let's see here. Oh yeah. You know what I may do? Kind of want to put some heat on that. I'm gonna go get my heat gun, I think. I hate to break that bolt off. Oh, okay, my bad. I hate to break that bolt off.
So once again, this is one of the main reasons we don't use air tools.
Yeah, I think it's that's that dry lock patch. It's the old saying, cross thread's better than Loctite.
No, cross-threading is a redneck Loctite.
Oh, is that what it is? Thanks again for making us work here. There it went. So there you see it. That bolt just broke in half. And I was taking it out by hand. It's this one right here. Once we get this cover off, I can show you where it goes. It goes into a tower. There's a threaded stud on the underneath side of this cover.
Once again, one of the main reasons you don't use air tools. I know you guys, some of you guys were asking about why we don't use air tools. Pick up the mirror with
This is typical though. I mean, this is.
But if this was if this was just a rocker box leak or something like that, or a head gasket leak, yeah, then
There'd be some cussing involved.
yes, it would be a major issue at that point.
You're losing money at that point.
So, but like I said, being that we're replacing everything, not so bad, but it's still is an issue when you're taking everything apart. Yeah.
If you run an external breather line, would it void your warranty?
An external breather line would it void your warranty? I don't think an external breather line would void your warranty. Because you're not messing with anything. You're not messing with the air and fuel. You know, all you're doing is venting it. That shouldn't affect your warranty at all. Now, if you change an air filter, if you change the intake setup to allow more air to go into the motor, yes, now you're playing with fire, because that's totally different.
Yeah, if you're going to mess with the fuel air mixture, use a different tuner, an aftermarket tuner, those will void your warranty. And it happens automatically when most people don't realize when you put on an aftermarket tuner on one of these motorcycles, when we plug them in, it is automatically zapped. And it'll automatically tell that the bike is tuned with an aftermarket tuner. That automatically voids your warranty on your powertrain. It's EPA. There's no way around it. We have to plug the bikes in, just like computers. The motorcycles have updates, so during your
If you've got an engine code,
during your services, we got to plug your bike in. So there's just no way around that.
and Harley has software built in to these. Our computer talks to Harley like every night, I think. If you don't talk to Harley with your computer within 7 days, then you don't have access to a lot of stuff on our digital tech that's already loose. And the reason that they did that is basically it's a CYA. They started reporting back to the EPA with the VIN numbers that had aftermarket tuners. I think that was probably part of the settlement or whatever. That they've got a CYA. They got to cover theirs.
And
so now we've got this off.
Once your warranty is voided on your powertrain, there is no way around that.
Yeah, you cannot get it unflagged. We've tried. So that's our top rocker cover gasket. These are our rocker arms that sit in here. Push rods are going down. The push rods come down through here. You got your tappets that sit down there that we were just talking about over there. This little black box right here is the breather. I'll get that out of there and we'll kind of show a little bit of that. Let's get this other cover off.
Next question, now we got the heads coming off. Can we use different cam options without voiding your warranty?
Nope.
Just Harley-Davidson cams?
Yep. And only the Harley stage kits. You can't put in, actually I don't even think Harley offers any cams like they did for the twin cams for the M8s. For the twin cams we had, the 204, the 211, the 203s, the 255, stuff like that. Harley doesn't offer that anymore. They've got a stage 1 or the stage 2 power cam, the stage 2 torque cam. The stage 3 has its own cam. And then the stage 4 has its. There are other cams out there available from other companies. S&S makes a great cam that we put in Ron Allen's bike. He had a 117 that we did an S&S cam in, and he loves it. I mean, the thing sounds like a hot rod, but that would have avoided the warranty because we had to use a different style tuner than a Harley tuner. And actually, that was the first one we found out that it flagged VINs.
Yeah.
Now then, do we dare? That one's gonna come right out, I bet.
Apparently Ron Allen is watching.
Oh yeah, what's up, Ron? What is it, 75 degrees and sunny where he's at? Ron and Talene moved down to Pensacola about a year ago, I think. Something like that. They said the hell with winter.
So they're enjoying some warmer weather.
Yeah, they got hurricanes though to deal with.
Okay.
But yeah, Ron's pool gets done. I'll have to take the kids down there. Oh, we like Ron. Ron's a good dude. And Talene. Now, one of the things that I do while we're talking about it, these bolts have got the Loctite on them. A lot of these bikes I try to work on like they're mine. Whoops. And so I will take these bolts over to the wire wheel, the grinder that most people have or whatever. It's got a grinder on one side and a wire wheel on the other. And I will take those bolts and I will get all of that old Loctite off of there because these call for a blue Loctite to go back together. So you can see all that dry nastiness on there. We'll take them over to the wire wheel, every single one of these bolts, and clean all that off of there so we get a good clamp load going back together. Oh, excuse me. I'm gonna go to the other side. I don't have any music. I need music. Why I'm not WDing the bolts? I mean, I could probably throw some. WD's not really going to do anything because it's a dry lock patch, so WD's not going to get down in there. Heat would be what I would need. And I even mentioned it. I thought about going over there and grabbing my heat gun, but then it's going to heat everything up around it. And so now you're working with a hot cover. You could use, we've got a little torch, little handheld torch that you get at Menards or Lowe's or whatever. We'll use MAP gas instead of propane because the MAP gets a lot hotter. But then you run the risk, you've got stuff around here that can melt, so throwing a flame in here. But ideally, heat would help loosen this Loctite. You get it warmed up and then it'll back on out of there. The WD might work, but I really don't think you'd notice a whole lot of a difference.
So we try to use the flame heat as the last resort.
Yeah, a heat gun. I've got an old school soldering iron that gets hot, and just take that soldering iron and hold it on the head of a bolt and let that heat transfer through the bolt. It warms the Loctite up, and then you can get them out of there. The Ultras, when you're taking the fairing lowers off of the Ultras, there's a couple bolts in there. Some of these guys that work on these things will know what I'm talking about. They have blue Loctite on them.
And they are notorious for getting out.
Yep, because they're those go into like a threaded insert, and all of a sudden that insert will start spinning with you, and there's, again, issues that you face. All right, that front cover's ready to come off, I think. There it is.
How many years ago did they do away with the 204 cams?
They still have the 204 cams. You can still get them if you have a twin cam. I think our lovely cameraman here, Nate, has got some on order actually. Yeah. We like the 204 around here. There's actually a little bit of some trick stuff that we do to it. We actually order gear from Andrews to advance the timing on that 204, and it gives it a really cool hot rod sound. Sarah that works here, her husband Tom, this last summer we put that cam in his bike, and it sounds awesome.
It's a nice thump.
Yeah. Because most of the time when you're talking about cams for Harleys, people want more of what they've got. And Harleys are all about torque. So they want more torque. And that 204, it's awesome. It gives you a lot more, bottom end torque. And it's a bolt-in cam. You don't have to do any head work. I like the 204. We installed a lot of them. Oh Jesus. Is there an echo?
Watching you twice. It's okay.
I can hear myself.
I don't like it.
You're not supposed to be able to hear your thoughts that loud. All right, so these are the breathers that I was talking about. They just kind of pop right up out of here. They got an O-ring on them. Sit down in there like that. And this little box right here has got like I've never taken one of these apart because it's a sealed unit. All you do is replace that O-ring on there, but there's probably some sort of an umbrella valve in there with like a fiber mesh like they had in the twin cams that is designed to just separate the oil from the air. Because ideally all you want coming out of these holes is air. But inevitably you will have some oil, especially if you overfill them with oil. They don't like to be overfilled. Well, it's talking about oil level. No, you're right. Talking about oil level, these bikes will find their own oil level. And I think every bike is different. And you can fill it all the way to the top, and the oil will come out of the breather and the air filter until this engine finds the oil level that it likes. And it may be different than that Ultra over there or that Standard. Some of them, they have to find their own oil level where they like to run at, and they will get rid of the oil that they don't want. We didn't bring out, here's a trash can. All right, our rockers are off, or covers are off. So now we can work on taking our rocker arm shafts out. We'll get those out next. Now then, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm not gonna get called out. We're not gonna get called out by anybody. So we're gonna roll this motor over so that our tappets are at their lowest spot when we break these rockers loose.
A very important part of build.
And to roll the motor over, we put it in 6th gear.
Explain to everybody out there why we do this.
So if we were to pull these rockers off, you can tell, I don't know if Nate can get in there, but this intake rocker, you can see how it's pushed up a little bit. So there's pressure on these arms. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll the motor over so that these valves are closed. And so that then these bolts will have the least amount of pressure on these rocker arms, will have the least amount of spring pressure on them. And it's just easier on disassembly on the parts that we're gonna use to go back together. These rocker arms are gonna go in our 131 motor. We don't want to crack them in half. We don't want to, and if you're in a bind and you loosen one side up more than the other, you could, I've seen these towers crack. Yep. It's just an extra precautionary measure that we take so we don't break stuff. Let's see, I need a 5/8 to get the spark plugs out. I'm taking the spark plugs out because I just put it in 6th gear and jacked the rear wheel up off the ground so we can spin it. Take these spark plugs out, and then we'll be able to roll the motor over. You try to roll the motor over right now with the compression that's in the cylinders, and good luck. It's probably not gonna happen. There we go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll this over and I'm gonna watch these rocker arms. Nate, you wanna go over there? So right here, if we watch right there, as we roll this over, there our exhaust is opening, exhaust is closing, intake is opening, intake is closed. So now we're on the base circle of that cam. So there's not a lot of pressure on these right now. That is where you would adjust push rods if you were installing adjustable push rods or something like that. So now we can take these loose. And what I'll do is I'll break this side loose, and then I'll come over there and break that side loose.
And what is your opinion, Chris, on adjustable push rods? I know this kit takes the stock push rods, but
I am a huge fan of stock push rods. The reason I like stock push rods is after we get these out of here, we can actually kind of compare. This is a one-piece push rod. Adjustable push rods are what, 1, 2, 3 pieces? You got the push rods. Adjustable push rods have their place. I'll put it that way.
depending on the build?
Depending on the build, the only downfall to adjustable push rods is, one, they weigh a little more. So you're adding weight to a motor. Number two, and kind of the big one for me, is they have a lock nut on them that holds your adjustment. And they tell you to, some companies will tell you, drop a red Loctite on the threads for that lock nut so it'll hold your adjustment on the push rod. Well, as we just talked about, we all know what the enemy of Loctite is, and that's heat. These V-twins get extremely hot, so I just don't see how the Loctite, is going to hold up for the life of that push rod. And some push rods will come loose. Adjustables will come loose. But if an adjustable push rod comes loose running down the highway and you don't really know how to adjust it, you're on the side of the road. These push rods will not come loose because they're one piece. But like I said, they have their applications. You could install a cam in this bike and not have to take all of this stuff off. The Harley Stage 2 cam kits come with adjustable push rods, so you don't have to take the top of the motor off. So here we go. There's our rocker arm. Ta-da, see, got a couple fingers on there. Those fingers go down and touch the tip of the valve, and that's what opens the valve, or valves. I can go ahead and pull, there's one of the push rods that we were talking about. That's a one piece. Harley actually sells perfect fit push rods. If you're doing motor builds that you need like 30 thou bigger or 30 thou smaller, they sell perfect fit push rods, and they're awesome too.
And as you can see how he lays this stuff out here.
Yep.
Sure.
I know how everything came out because I want it to go in the same way.
Very important.
And why that's important, especially like tappets. If you're going to pull tappets out and you're not going to replace them, the tappets are, this is a tappet. This is what I'm talking about when I say a tappet. That sits right down in there and it rides on the cam. So that goes up and down. Okay, that's how all of this works. So this has a roller on it. Okay, so if this tappet is sitting in here this direction and that roller is rolling this direction all of its life, say, however many thousand miles you put on it before you decide to do a cam, if you pull this up and out of there and you're going to reuse it, you better make sure you know which way it came out, because if you take it out this way and you put it back in this way, now that roller, this roller right here, has just started the wear process over again. So the roller life has gotten cut in half because you've just switched it around and changed the direction that it's going. You don't do that. You wouldn't do it with your car tires or anything that wears. Now we're going to roll the motor over a little bit more so we can take the front rockers out. Is that exhaust closing, intake opening? Did the intake close? Yeah, we're good. We're good. Going back together is critical, making sure that you bring these things down even. Because I have seen, we got a bike in from Terre Haute one day, and this tower, these rocker towers, The one over on this side was broken in half, allowing that ride. It made all kinds of racket. Now these are loose. Okay. Yeah, and then we'll probably want to get that stud and a bolt. I would just replace that stud and the bolt. That way we don't have to worry about. I'm not sure if they make rocker arms for the M8s or not. I know they have them for the twin cams. I'd have to look in the Screaming Eagle catalog. If they've, yeah, I don't know if they've got them or not.
Well, I think this stage would have them if they did have them.
You'd think, yeah. We're getting there. We get these lower rocker covers off, and we're about there. We get that throttle body out of there, get these push rods out of here, and I always lay these down. I know exactly how they came out.
Okay, Mr. Booth.
Okay, Mr. Connor.
If you're upgrading the cam, wouldn't you want to replace the rollers? Aren't they married after a few thousand miles?
The lifters, and is that what you're talking about, the rollers and the lifters? I always think it's a good idea to replace lifters. If you're in there doing cams or cam, you know what I mean, and you've got miles on your motor, yes. Zach, Master Tech that we've got back there, he's worked in multiple shops and had a Harley engineer that told him at a school that lifters were actually a wearable item and that you should replace them after, like, I think he said 10 or 15,000 miles, that it's a good idea just to replace them, and that the cost is not that bad, that you can get replace lifters for like the cost of a service, I think.
Yeah, the lifters themselves, off the top of my head, the Screaming Eagle lifters, I believe, are $259.95 for a set of 4 for the Screaming Eagle lifters. So.
Yeah, so that is a good idea. If you're inspecting a lifter roller, and you see like the hard coat coming off, I don't have any here to show you, but on the lifter, there's some hard coat that can actually start peeling off of there. And if you see the hard coat peeling off, definitely replace them.
18 hours.
I need my 3/8. They are going to be married, yeah. They will definitely, but depending on how many miles are on them, if you're replacing them at like 2,000 or 3,000 miles, they may not be bad.
Okay, so Chris, one of the questions we had is the time-wise on this job.
Time-wise.
As we know, it's our job, 18-hour job, and then dyno time, and as folks can see, and as folks started this build, we already had a lot of the components taken off. As you can see, we're just, I think, over an hour into the job, and we're still disassembling. So it is a lengthy job, it's time-consuming, but there's many reasons why. Like I said, dyno time included with that. We go through everything, so that's why the other reason is why this is a 3-week build. And we'll take the bike in the back and obviously finish off some of the other components.
Yeah, exhaust. You got these lower rocker bolts. There's 2 over here on this side, there's 2 over on that side, and then that stud in the middle. You just gotta be careful. I don't like losing bolts. If you ever drop a bolt, you better make sure you find it. Because I have seen, the most common is battery bolts. People will lose their battery bolts, changing their batteries at home, and they'll drop a bolt and they won't find it. Think, oh, I got another one laying there, I'll just use a new one. And they put it in there. Well, that battery bolt that they dropped, I've seen them get wedged down in between the swing arm and the case and actually crack the case. I've seen them get wedged over here between the frame and the inner primary housing and crack an inner primary housing, put a hole in an inner primary housing, then you got a primary leak. All from a battery bolt. So if you drop a bolt, make sure you find it. Yep, there we go. That's the one that broke off. So it's a stud that we can thread a bolt into. So that stud, the stud half is what helps hold this lower rocker down on there. And these bolts also have dry lock patch on them, so I'm always careful taking them out. That motor clothes department does look good, doesn't it? I don't get up here much. They've done a good job with that t-shirt wall and everything. All right, so we've got all of these lower rocker bolts out. So now this should come up off of here, just like that. So that's the gasket. That green part right there is the gasket. It's like a rubber gasket, kind of reminds you of a derby cover gasket on one of these new bikes. See, it's just kind of a rubber. And if you don't get that in there just right, you will create a leak. And you've seen how long it took us to get down this far. That's the last thing we want. Well, we'll set that here. So now we're down to the cylinder head on this side. Now you can see those rocker towers real good. See, this one looks a lot beefier than this one, say. And then you go over there to the other sode, we get this front one off and kind of see the difference in those.
So Chris, our viewers are really enjoying this build here, so we're going to let them know this is the first of several things that we're going to do live online. If you have any builds or things that you'd like to see us do live demonstrations of, please send us a note on Facebook there. But hopefully in the next coming weeks we may do an audio video. We have a lot of questions on the audio system, and we're going to do something on that eventually. Answer all your questions.
Yeah, because they just changed all of that.
Yeah, answer all your questions on the infotainment system. But we're glad the viewers are enjoying this live build.
Two more over there. Do what?
Someone wants to see the full dyno What does that look like just walking through it?
Walking through the dyno process, well, the first step is you got to make sure your bike is safe enough to go on the dyno. So you got to get it on a lift. You're going to check tire pressure. You're going to jack the bike up and look at the rear tire and make sure there's no nails in it, because you get on the dyno and you're going to spin that drum. You know, the rear tire is going to be going 120, 130 mile an hour, you know, by the time you shut it down. And if there's a nail in it, it can become a projectile inside that dyno room. So we don't want to have any nails in the tire. You want to make sure your belt's adjusted. You know, if you don't have your belt adjusted properly, that could end badly on the dyno. And then just a base run, you know, you got to get the bike centered on the dyno. You got to get a inductive lead hooked up to your spark plug wires so that you have a tach. The dyno software will show you, you know, it has your tach up on the screen. You got to get the bike up to operating temp, you know, before you start making your runs. And then, yeah, it's just a matter of making the runs. We'll have a video. I think we're going to do a video, kind of show people what we do inside the dyno. Tuning this bike is going to be a little bit different than like tuning something with an aftermarket tuner, say a Power Vision. Power Vision, we can actually go in and build a map for. The Harley map is kind of a set map, and then with a street tuner, we can collect data and it can adjust that map a little. Like I said, to keep it within EPA standards. Another product, you know, that we use sometimes is the DynoJet Power Vision, which DynoJet is who makes our dyno. So DynoJet has been in the business for a long time. They know their stuff. And the Power Vision, I actually went to Vegas and took the Power Vision class. That reminds me of like the old super tuners, when we could tune these bikes back, 10 years ago? And you can actually build maps, and that's almost an art, you know. The street tuners aren't too bad. Building of the maps it gets in depth. You've got to collect data from all of your RPM ranges and all of your throttle percentages, and then you can adjust the fuel in each one of those. You know, you've got it's basically a spreadsheet, I guess is the easiest way I can describe it. And across the top of your spreadsheet are all your throttle positions, going from 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 60, 80, and 100. Some of them even have 90. And then your RPM ranges go from 0, or I think they start at like maybe 500, but your idle is at 1,000, and they go all the way down to redline. This redline, I think, is 56 or 5,800. Some of the twin cams were 6,200. And so that spreadsheet, you can collect data or an air fuel sample in all of those squares. And so you can think of it as each one of those squares in a spreadsheet as a jet inside a carburetor, and you can change each one of those jets. So that can get kind of time consuming, but it's fun. It's fun stuff. All right, I think we're ready to take that throttle body out of there.
Before we do that, one question.
Yeah, go for it.
On the advantages and disadvantages of a TTS tuner.
I've used a TTS tuner before. I know a lot of people that use them. Just a little history on it. The guy that started TTS Tuner, the Turbo Shop out in Compton, California, he's the one that designed Harley's first race tuner. It was the old school tuner that we used back in, like 06, 07? Yeah, and then I think Harley might have done some reverse engineering on that bad boy and came out with the super tuner years later. And kind of the guy that runs, TTS is still making tuners. It's like that old race tuner that we used to use. I've used a few of them. I know there are shops that do use them. When it comes to aftermarket tuners, though, I prefer the Power Vision just because I like it a little bit more. There's a little bit more adjustability. You've got the guys out there at DynoJet, like I said, they kind of know their stuff, and they've done a lot of dyno work getting their base maps where they need to be. Because if you've got a poor base map going in, you'll be in the dyno a long time trying to get a bike tuned if you don't have the right base map. But TTS is a good tuner. I'm just not familiar with it. I think that they used to use them out in Terre Haute, I think. Chad, when we worked with Chad, he came from Marion, and that's what they used up in Marion. It's a good tuner.
What? Once again?
That would void your warranty on this bike.
Yeah.
This thing goes, goes haywire for some reason, and we got a street tuner on it, we're getting it warranted.
We can't stress that enough about the factory warranty and why we use the Screaming Eagle Pro Street Tuner, and that is one of the biggest reasons.
Yep, it is the biggest. You like to have warranty.
You know, if something were to fail, it'll be covered.
Yeah, no matter what. But once that VIN is flagged, you get a VIN that's flagged and you have an issue with your transmission. That's part of the powertrain.
Exactly. A lot of people don't realize that.
What would they say in Boston? Sorry, guy.
Sorry, guy.
Oh, I'm gonna miss that. So these throttle body bolts over here, I've got a special tool, little ball Allen socket there, little Matco tool, so you can get in there and you can loosen these bolts up. These bolts don't have to come all the way out because that flange on that throttle body, the flange has got a slot in it. I'll show you when we get it out of there.
We'll probably go until about 3 on the showroom, or sorry, 2 that we're showing for today. So yeah, then we'll do that next weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be cold out, nothing better to do. Can't ride, although Abby proved us wrong on that today. Abby, our hardcore parts to service liaison, showed us all up today and rode in on a, what's he have, a Softail?
It was 12 degrees out this morning.
Here we go, part of the puzzle.
That's what you call hardcore.
Actually, you know what, it's called something.
You got the Lowrider S.
Lowrider S, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stage 1, yeah?
Yeah, he's our next candidate for a 131 build.
There we go, so there's our throttle body. And what I was talking about on this other one here, if you want to come over here to the table, you can see the difference. So this is plastic right here, okay? This is not. And so, these are just flanges right here. So this is a plastic flange right here. Well, it rests up against a cylinder head, and that cylinder head gets extremely hot. And we've seen where you can actually have some distortion in this plastic, and it'll kind of oblong a little bit. I've even heard some of them on some Softails that are so bad it sounds like an air leak. You can actually hear it, while it's just sitting there running. And this what happens. Those things will get real hot, and that'll kind of elongate.
You could listen to one and tell them right what's wrong with it, Keith.
Not all the time. Sometimes.
And you can see they do sell an upgrade. If you're just looking to get an upgraded manifold, they do sell the Screaming Eagle aluminum one, so you could just upgrade.
What's the ticket on one?
On one of those, I'd have to check. It's not too pricey. I'll give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, we could find out.
Good old pals.
Yeah, and those guys out of HPI, that's what they do. I think you could take that one and take it out to HBI, and for whatever, they could redo that one. I think so.
What's
yeah.
the stock one, 62?
No, stocks are what, 58 millimeter?
Oh, 50. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
58.
You can tell this a lot better.
Yeah. It just nothing against this, but for stock setups or whatever. It's just those are the issues that we've seen out of them.
So maybe you can run this on a stock bike then.
You absolutely could. Yeah.
Make it run a lot better, wouldn't it?
So 189 for the 55 millimeter.
The whole thing?
Just the throttle body.
Just this part right here.
Oh, right here, yeah.
This will bolt to your old one, but
Yep.
Yep.
yeah. Man, that ain't bad.
Yeah.
I figured a ridiculous
Yeah.
price. This
No, I knew it was somewhere under $200, but
Get up in there. I'm gonna get these bolts out here real quick so we don't lose them, because we're gonna need those to go back together. These are those bolts that I didn't need to take out because that flange was slotted. Here, I'll show you.
that ain't bad at all. So you got $500
That was the flange
when you buy
right there. So this
and
bolt has to
have it
come
put on
out.
here.
This bolt was on the
And
other
hook
side.
up
It does
and
not have to
everything.
come out because you can
Under
just slip it right over.
$500.
Yeah.
And
They do make different ones for Evos, but the Evo one wasn't.
Let me get a screwdriver and we'll pop those push tubes out of there. Huh?
Large log, I think it's 44 millimeter.
So I think Jim's makes a special tool, I think, for some of these clips for the push rods. Basically how these push rod tubes work is there's a spring underneath this collar and it gets it spring. So we just kind of move that out of there like that. See how that went up? Okay, so if we take this out of here, so underneath there's a spring. So that spring sits right there and it kind of goes down and that's what holds that clip in there. That's the only thing that holds this clip in there is just that spring tension from that spring right there.
Where are we at battery wise?
Under 20%.
I felt something. I don't know what it was, but I felt something hit my foot.
I'll grab it in a second.
There we go. Push rod tubes are out. There's Dalton. He's our driver, our logistics manager. Okay, so before we take our tappet blocks off of there, I think I'm just going to go ahead and get our cylinder heads and our cylinders off because once we do that, if I was to take these tappet blocks off right now, I can use a regular Allen to get these bolts, but in order to get those bolts back there, as you can tell, you're not going to be able to get that in there quite right. So you'd have to use a ball Allen, which is what a ball Allen is. You can get in there with a ball Allen, but then you run the risk of stripping the head of that bolt out and just having it look nasty. So it's just easier for me. I'll take these off, take the cylinders up out of the way, and then we can get in there with a regular Allen socket. And that's why we do that. So I think we're actually ready to pop our cylinder heads loose. As you can see, we use a little bit bigger pry bar because these head bolts, they're a little tight. And I'll do the same thing like I did with the rocker arms. I'll break that one loose. Break this one loose. I'd have to look. And when it comes to torque sequence, you know, going back together, I have the book out and I'm reading because I don't try to remember torque sequences or specs. I got enough birthdays and anniversary dates to remember.
I got 6 kids.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so if there's a way to find the information, I don't need to remember it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100 meter old.
But it's like a stepped deal. So when we go back together, you lube them, of course. You put oil. You'll put oil on the flange, on the underneath side of the flange here. So what I'll do is I'll run oil around that flange, and then I'll actually put a little drop of oil down there on the threads, lubricate the threads. And so then when you go back together, there's a sequence, but they have you do them all like finger tight. So they're all finger tight. And then you'll go to it's like 120 inch-pounds or something just to kind of set it. And then you may go to like 14 to 15 foot-pounds. And some of them you actually loosen them up. So you'll snug them down like that, and then you'll loosen it up like 180 or 360 degrees, like a half or a whole turn. And then you'll go back down, and it's like a 12 to 15, and then I think you might go as high as like 20 or something like that. And then once you get to a certain torque, a lot of the Harley heads, you get to a torque and then you go 90 degrees. And so they'll have you either mark it with like a grease pencil or something, or I've actually got a snap-on torque wrench that's, you know, vibrates and beeps and does all, and it will actually tell you when you've gone 90 degrees. So I can punch in, I want to go 90 degrees, and so I can hit it at 90 degrees and it'll actually tell me what torque it's set at. So like on twin cams, these cylinder head studs over here, or bolts over here, are longer than they are on the other side. And so that's always important, because on the twin cams, sometimes you'll get different torque readings, you know, because you got a longer bolt versus, you know, the shorter one on the spark plug side.
Okay, Chris.
Okay. Connor?
David.
Gentleman David?
Yes. Hope he's not getting too far ahead, but wonders why Harley doesn't provide an actual head bolt for torquing motors. Instead, their service manual says tighten so much then 90 degrees.
And yeah, we were just kind of going over that, and I think it honestly has to do with the length difference in the bolts. Back to twin cam, having, you know, a bolt that's this long versus a bolt that's this long, it actually you couldn't really torque it to the same spec, so to say, and get the same clamp load. And I think that's why they go 90 degrees. They get to a certain point and then it goes to 90. That's just my 2 cents. Is that I'd have to really probably call Harley and talk to the engineers, because there could be a technical reason why they do it, you know, an engineering, or because, like, say Cometic makes head gaskets that we will use a lot of times. I actually just installed them on my bike, and the Cometic gaskets come with their own spec. It's a multi-layer head gasket, kind of like what we're going to install. And actually, when we go back together, I'll have to read these instructions. We may not go 90 degrees on these. We may actually go all the way up in torque, like the Cometic head gaskets do, because the Cometics, that's what they'll do. They'll final torque at, like, say, 42 foot-pounds. You don't have to 90 degree a Cometic head gasket. So we've got all the bolts out of the cylinder head. So this thing should just pop right up and off of here, just like that. That's my engine temp sensor right there. I've seen those go bad. You have an engine temp sensor that goes bad, sometimes you won't really know it. The bike, you know, could run horrible, and that won't set a code because it's still doing its job. If it's breaking down and it says it's only 5 degrees outside, the ECM thinks it's 5 degrees and wants to throw a bunch of fuel to it to warm the bike up, and it starts running all crazy, and it can work the same way on the other end. Now we can break the front loose. The funny part?
Oh yeah, we're about to switch cameras.
Oh. Getting real close to being able to see some pistons.
Almost there. When you take them out, we'll show the viewers the top of the pistons.
And there's the front. So the heads are off. Our head gasket, there's our head gasket right there.
Now, if some of you may remember on the twin cams, right, Chris? They had the O-rings on the.
Some of them had O-ring,
Yep.
yeah, around the dowels, I think it was, or.
Yep. Walking aids don't.
So yeah, if you want to get in there and look at the tops of the pistons, and actually we can grab one of the new ones because you can see, there's some difference.
Yeah.
I don't want to drop that because that's my piston pin. But you can see the difference. Like, I don't know. You can actually see, I don't know, I'm going to shine some light in here. I don't know if you can see this or not. But there are little divots right here, and right here, right here, and right here for the valves. Okay, you can see this one, the valve divots are much larger. And mainly that's because we're going to open our valves in those new heads further than the stock ones. So they had to relief these pistons just a little bit. So we've got clearance. Because if the valves hit the pistons,
Not bad.
rapid disassembly at the molecular level.
That's when you have a catastrophic parts failure.
Yep.
And that is not good.
All right. Well, let's see here. Guess we can go ahead and pop these jugs up off of here. Kind of loose. Now this is where I'm always careful. Out here we don't have to worry about it so much. But like if I get it up to like say that height right there, most of the time I'm going to get some rags or something. Sometimes I got some foam that I cut out and I'll put it in there. Because in this situation, we're not going to go any deeper. We're going to change the pistons, but we're not going to go down into the bottom end of the motor. So if you drop anything in there, again, it's not going to end well. And that could be anything. RC could be working on the other side of the shop with a snap ring pliers, and his snap ring comes flying across the shop, and inevitably, what is it, Murphy's Law? That thing will go right down into there while I've got my back turned, and I won't hear it, I won't notice it. And if RC doesn't come looking for it, then we would never know that something ended up down there. So it's always a good idea to kind of put something in there to catch stuff in case something were to fall. But when you do that, you've also got to make sure that you take those rags back out on assembly, because that could end, horribly. I've seen rags down in oil pans before.
Just like a surgeon, when they're operating, they put gauze in there. They got to count how many pieces of gauze they take out.
That's right.
Well, it's the same
Yep.
context.
There's our base gasket. It sits on the bottom of the cylinder like that.
Once again, no O-ring, just like on the twin cams. The
Yep.
twin cams had the O-ring on the bottom. Milwaukee 8s do not.
Actually, you know what we're going to need? We might want to get the piston ring or the piston circlip pliers
Okay.
they're going to be in the special tools drawer.
Okay.
All the way over by the press at the top drawer. I think it's in a gray box.
Do you need some extra? Do you need some rags for that?
I've got rags. Over in my area, I've got derby cover gaskets, the orange ones. We'll grab a couple of those because after I get the pistons off, I use those to hold the rods straight. So yeah, I'm gonna throw some rags in here. These rags, I always make sure that we don't have anything in them. These rags are notorious for having metal in them. We don't want any metal down in our motor. Some people will use those blue lint-free rags.
Microfibers, whatever.
Yeah. I like to cover motors up with plastic. Like when we go to set this one back in there, I'll have plastic over it so that nothing gets in there. I'll probably take the rags out and just put plastic over the motor. We'll go ahead and pop this jug off. Lost audio on me. What? Don't start talking, is that what he said? Okay, I won't tell you why I use these. Chad actually gave me this idea. We're back.
What were you saying about this circlet from earlier?
The circlip.
How they come out, or
I mean, I was just kind of showing that there's a circlip on either side. I'm putting this in here. It just keeps that rod from clanging against the case. Sometimes the circlips can be a pain to get out. They've got this tool right here, and this is how this tool works. It's got a little hook on it, and so you would hook that circlip like that, and then you just shove it in. When we go back together, I'll probably have to use these and show how they work. Sometimes you can get them to work on disassembly. If you can get in here and you can grab it, but it may not work. No, that's not going to work. But where the opening is right here, so we can just walk this one right out of there like we did the rear. If I get my screwdriver in there. I don't want to get it in Nate's eye. There it comes.
I got glasses. It'll be fine.
Oh, so go in my eye then. Just like that. I guess that circlip out of there, and now I can take that piston pin and we can slide it over this way. Just like that. And I just slid it over enough so that we can get the rod out of there. Or get it up off of the rod. Yeah, so I don't know if we can see a huge difference. Yeah, I mean, there's not a...
How many miles is on that bike?
I think he's got 2,500 on it. Yeah, so I mean, you can see how the rings are kind of in the way there. But its piston really doesn't look that much bigger, does it?
that's a 4.5 inch on the 131.
So yeah, those are just, we've got plenty of derby cover gaskets laying around there that we've used before. So I'll just throw those in there to keep the rods from slamming against the case.
Okay.
So now we're ready to take our tappet blocks off, pull our tappets out, and get into the cam compartment. Before I do that, I'm going to change my gloves as I've got holes in both thumbs.
Lovely.
And then we'll have to get a drain pan. Yep, I think we're ready to take off the tappet blocks, tappet covers. And I explained why I took the cylinders off before I did that, so I didn't have to use a ball Allen to pull the 4 inside bolts. Not that there's anything wrong with ball Allens. It's just when you use a ball Allen socket, it tends to mar up the bolt. I've got a Sportster back there. I just did a 1,000-mile service on this morning. And some of these bolts, I can tell, it almost looks like somebody's tried to take them out. You can just, looks like there's damage on them. And those ball Allens will tend to do that. I like using a regular Allen socket on those. And that might already be over there. Yep, here it is. So I can use a squared off bit to get in there and it really bites, just in case we have a stubborn one that doesn't want to come out real easy. Ticket to ride.
We're gonna hear horns in a second.
let the people know. So Julian has come on board, and we do it's kind of a welcoming people to the Harley family, or welcoming them, to our dealership when they buy a new bike. And it's a huge deal. I mean, it's a big investment. I still remember when I bought my first Harley. It's 26 years old here in 06. And I didn't get to do anything like this, where the whole dealership kind of comes out and welcomes you, congratulates you. It's actually really cool.
I didn't get that.
You gotta take a break for our ticket to ride?
I can do that.
Okay.
Here comes, Kickstart My Heart. How can you go wrong with Motley Crue?
And that's how we do it here.
That's how we do it.
In Indianapolis.
Come on up, buy a bike. Get the full experience.
Or two.
Or two, yeah. Now if you'll notice, I'm leaving one bolt in on each one of these. Because these tappet blocks, again, with heat cycles, they like to stick. So I'll leave one bolt in there, and I'll show you why. We're gonna get our little rubber mallet out. Did you get that Kansas City Chiefs jacket in there? Got a Chiefs fan. Well, if he's got any money.
Good old foosball.
Any money on the game.
I think you should get that out of the video.
Yeah, put it on, rep his team. He's like, oh, they're talking about me. We're waiting on that jacket to get put on and come out here.
Show some support, come on.
Our general manager's a big Chiefs fan.
Big
so
Chiefs fan.
we know who he's rooting for tomorrow.
Trying to repeat. Yeah, see, so this block right here, it's stuck. Both of them are stuck. They do not want to come off of there. So we're going to use this persuasion tool, but I'll leave one bolt in there. And the reason that I leave one bolt in, it's not tight. I've loosened it up, but it's still in there. And the reason I leave it in there is because you start hitting it with your persuasion tool, you don't want it to go flying, right? You want it to stay right where it's at. So we'll just tap on it. See that? Just pop right loose. That one did the same thing. Just like that. It's a persuasion tool,
Better than a smoke wrench.
Or SFH, as some people would call it. So now we can take that last bolt out. And just like that, our tappet blocks are out. Now this, I don't know if that camera can see it or not, These things right here, these are these Tappet retainers that I was talking about. I'll come around so everybody else can see. These Tappet block retainers right here are held on by a single bolt. That bolt also has that dry lock patch on there. And if you try to remove that bolt with air, you are gonna break it. It will snap. And then if that snaps and you can't get it out of there, it's broke off in the case. And you're buying an engine case. If you can't get that out of there, you destroy it trying to get it out of there or whatever. So I always take those out by hand. And even taking them out by hand, I have broke some. We can talk to Brandon about that. Our, what is Brandon? Our CFO, or he bought a bike out at Terre Haute, and they snapped one of those, and they destroyed the case trying to get it out. He had to get a new case. Yeah, see it move just a little bit, and then you feel it get tight. So we'll go back the other way. I went backwards, now I'm gonna go back in a little bit. Yeah, see, it doesn't wanna do that. Just slowly try to work it out. There we go. See that? See how much of that Loctite is on there? I mean, that's halfway up the bolt. There's a lot of that on there. You gotta be real careful taking those out. You gotta make sure you get all that off of there when you go back in. And what that does is that just holds this retainer. So the retainer's got shapes on it that are similar to the flat, or they fit right over the flats on those tappets. It keeps that tappet from rotating so that that roller stays where it needs to be on that camshaft. So like if I was just disassembling this bike if it just had an issue with something, I would pull these up out of here, maybe, and I would make sure that I knew which way they came out, and I'd just set it right back down in that hole right there. So I knew that that came out of there just like that. So I knew it went back in there just like that. This one we don't have to worry about that because we're replacing the tappets. So we're 1 for 1. Let's see if we can get this other one out. There we go. Well, broke loose.
Hey, Boo,
Yo.
do we have a grudge against Terre Haute Harley-Davidson? We've heard, someone's heard a few comment negative.
No, we don't have a grudge.
We love them like
Yeah.
brother.
Job security. I mean, no. No, I just know that that's just Brandon's story. I remember Brandon having an issue with that. It was a brand new case they had to replace because they broke one of those off. And like I said, I've broke them off before, taking them out by hand just like this. And if you break it off, okay, then you're left with like a stud right there. And if you've got a stud, something you can get a set of vice grips on, at that point, you better get the smoke wrench out or some heat out to get that Loctite heated up so you can walk it out of there. You don't want to put the heat on it with this on there because this is plastic, so you'll melt it if it's a flame. Little thing on how these work. See how that oil is dripping down right there? This is like an oil body right here. That oil pressurizes around the lifter right here. That's where it goes, and then there's a little, see, that's where the inlet is for that lifter. So the oil comes in around here and it pumps it up through there. That's how your lifters get oil pressure. Now we're gonna have to get a drain pan because when we pull this cam cover off, we're gonna lose a little bit of oil. There should be one on that cart. See that? We planned ahead.
Want to grab one of those mats too?
Set that right there. What time is it? So this is going to work out just about perfect. We'll just get, all of our disassembly.
Our tear down of the motor. So like I said, you can see how much is involved in it. We're just on the just over 2 hours right now.
I'm going to go grab a piece of cardboard real quick.
Okay. So as we said, it's a very lengthy job, and we're just in just over 2 hours, and we're just now getting to the cam cover to get the cam cover off, and pull out all the oil pump, the cam, probably pull out the cam bearing, and then we'll be right about finished up for the day.
Is this still good? I broke it? Oh no, you're not lying. There we go. See? Yeah, I can fix audio equipment too. So I just ran and got some cardboard, and the reason I did that is because, like I said, we're going to lose oil right here. Some people do not care about this oil running down all over the wiring harness and stuff like that. I do. I'm more of a perfectionist, I guess. So I take a piece of cardboard and I run it down and around all of that wiring, just like that. So that oil will run down the cardboard and into the pan and won't get all over that wiring harness. Honestly, it's just, I think it's above and beyond kind of thing, Yeah, so yeah. So Kyle doesn't get this home and park it in his garage, and it drips oil from right there, because we didn't get all of the residual oil out of there. So yeah, now we'll just pop this cam cover loose. We love Terre Haute. What are you talking about? It's our sister store.
It's a big brother sister.
Yeah.
There's that.
She's a very lovely lady.
Surprised nobody asked why you loosen them in that order.
Oh, well, that's just, yeah, again, we're just trying to relieve some of the pressure evenly instead of just going all the way around, like we're doing now to pull the bolts out now that we got them all loose. Again, I'll probably leave that one in, because my guess is we'll get all these bolts out and that cam cover is still going to be sitting there. See, they still got locked tight on those too. I'll take all of these bolts and I'll take them over to the wire wheel and I'll clean them up. Some people do that, some people don't. I've just gotten into the habit of, if this was my bike, that's what I would do. I want to go back together. I don't want to have anything on the threads because, yeah, we're going to use blue Loctite when we go back together. And if you put blue Loctite on top of that crustiness of the dry lock patch, you're not going to get a good thread engagement, like a good smooth thread engagement. It's not going to want to walk all the way in. You'll have to use a wrench to drop, to run it in. Does it make a difference? I don't know. It's just
Well, it does. Yeah, I believe right there. Like I said, because the threads aren't all coated with
See
the
that?
old Loctite.
Oh,
Why we do it.
I mean, visual representation is amazing.
You get closer. I can. Whose phone is this? I can drench it if you want.
That's Adam's. Don't worry about it.
Perfect. You can get it.
GM, go buy another phone.
Yeah, exactly.
careful.
Yeah, we're good on that, bud. Come on.
So there we go. So honestly, what I'll do is I'll throw these bolts right here into the cam cover so that I know that all of those bolts were for the cam cover. You can run into some issues, especially on the old twin cams, because the cam cover bolts are different length than like our cam support plate bolts. And if you run a cam cover bolt into the cam support plate, you can cause damage. So we don't want to do that.
Duly noted for my bill. Thank you.
So that's the inside of the cam compartment. So this is your cam sprocket up here. It attaches to the end of the camshaft. Once we get it all apart, you'll see the camshaft sitting in there. This is the crank sprocket. So that bolt is bolted directly into the end of the crankshaft. This is the tensioner right here. It's hydraulic. Keeps the tension on this chain. In 2007 is when we went to the hydraulic tensioners. Before that, at 06, Dynos, I think, had the hydraulic tensioners.
Yep.
But before that, they were spring loaded. And so this tensioner was held against that chain with a spring. So there is no back and forth movement. It is just all one way all the time. And they had issues with us wearing these out. They had one out here and they had one on the chain on the back side. And yeah, the secondary. And those would wear out, especially if you didn't change your oil. I can't stress maintenance enough. Changing fluids in these motorcycles. If you do nothing else, change your engine oil, change your primary transmission fluids, and change them often, because it really helps.
And another good thing to bring up here at Harley-Davidson of Indianapolis, when you have your case services done here, we change all 3 fluids at every case service.
Absolutely.
If you look at your owner's manual, they don't necessarily recommend that, but we do it here at Harley-Davidson of Indianapolis. We feel
Yeah.
that, all the fluids should be changed at every service interval.
Yeah, and a lot of people, the argument is, well, I just changed my fluids last spring, and I only rode 500 miles last year. It's like, okay, well, but your bike still got hot and cold multiple times. If it sits in a garage, your garage may get down to 50 degrees at night or something like that when it's cold out like this. Your garage may get up to 80, 90 degrees during the summer. So those temperature fluctuations, you're gonna have condensation that can form inside the motor, especially if you walk out there and you fire it up and you wanna listen to it run. You get some condensation in there. That condensation will get right down into the oil, and it doesn't go anywhere until the oil gets to operating temp and it can boil out of there. I stress with people, just because you changed it last year, you still ought to go ahead and put fresh fluids in it for riding season. I know I do. It doesn't cost that much, and it can extend the life of your motorcycle, especially the engine components, dramatically.
And once again, when you come here to ATV, you're getting your service done, we are changing all 3 fluids.
Absolutely. So we're going to pop this tensioner off of here. Got some T27 Torx bits holding this dude on here.
And as Chris stated, with the twin cams, the older twin cams, we know a lot of customers still out there got 2006 and earlier twin cams. If you don't know if you ever had them checked, we could check that for you. Just come in, make an appointment. We'll get that cam cover pulled off and check them. But it's very important that you get that looked at. I know a lot of times customers will buy a used bike and have no service history on it.
You can see where the chain's been running, but this one has only got 2,500 miles on it, so there's not a whole lot of wear. So we're good to go on that.
But like Chris said, on the twin cams, it's very crucial with the spring-loaded tensioner.
Absolutely.
If they do come apart, you can have major engine issues.
Yep. Let's see. I need to get my my locking tool so I can break those loose.
Run.
Was he back?
Yeah, he had to run back to the shop, get another tool.
Another tool. Here, rotate. Everybody give Nate just a hand for a second, because he's been rolling this wireless camera for almost 2.5 hours. I'm sure his forearms are literally killing him. My shoulders hurt bad.
Nate is one of our entry level technicians here, so he's helping us out today with the camera view.
Job.
Yeah.
So this is actually a screen
Where's
reader.
your mic at?
I got it.
He's got it.
Okay.
You can still hear me, I'm sure. This is a cam drive locking tool. So that's going to go right here. See how it doesn't go in there right now? So I'm going to take the motor and I'm going to kind of roll it over a little bit. See if I can get it to slide in there. Oh, there it is, right there. So that's going to hold those sprockets so we can break these bolts loose right here. There it goes.
Still here?
What?
Just drop it in your pocket so we can hear you again.
I did the same thing.
Oh man, you guys are killing Fluffy.
What happens with the shop workers back there, right? It's gone.
Does Fluffy need to be on it?
What?
Does Fluffy need to be there?
Let the adults handle it. Sorry about the outrageous noise we're doing, guys. It's only going to get worse for a second.
We apologize.
It's mostly Nate's fault, if you think about it.
A little technical difficulty.
Wait, hold on.
There we go.
There you go.
I
We're
literally
good.
don't even touch it.
Yeah. All right. So we've got our cam sprocket bolt out. We got our engine sprocket bolt out there. So then this just slides off as a unit. Just like that. So that's how we set our timing. You know, it's got a timing dot right there. Where's the other one at? There it is. See? That's how you can tell you're in time. If you take this sprocket out of here like that and turn it like that, bad things can happen.
Yeah, it's very bad.
Bad things. That has to be timed just right. And that's how you just make sure that, oh, that's still not right.
Wait, weren't you doing a job like when I came in for the State of the Union 2 weeks ago, where those things weren't timed up? And
Maybe.
because you showed me, I think that top sprocket,
That's a possibility.
and it just didn't have any teeth.
Yeah. Yep.
Very important.
Yeah, it's got little dots on it. So you got, that's your, yep. So that one right there, and then there's a dot right there. And honestly, you just kind of hang it just like that, and you just set it in there. Yep. And that just like that. Yeah, you can be off, you know, you get off one tooth and
Like won't run.
yeah,
Run right.
won't run right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, so now we just got some bolts here to take loose, and we can have our cam support plate out of there.
Another very important part of the build that you'll be seeing in the upcoming weeks during the reassembly, those bolts that he did take out of the gears here, they are not to be reused.
Yeah, we always replace those. We didn't used to. We used to, I think, just clean them up, put red Loctite on them. But the master that I learned from, we kind of came to the conclusion that the new bolts, these new sprocket retention bolts, come with a red dry lock patch on them. And I think a lot of it has to do with, if you notice, see that oil running out of that crankshaft? So you got oil coming out of there. So that dry lock patch will not allow that oil to come past the lock patch. It's going to push that oil that way, which also can create a hydraulic lock on the twin cams. The breather bolts, or the breather assemblies, when you're bolting those back down in there, you got to get all the oil out of that cylinder head, because it can create a hydraulic lock. And I have broken a cylinder head before doing that. You don't want to do that either.
Mr. Booth, do you want to explain to the people the difference between red and blue Loctite?
Basically, one's stronger than the other.
Okay, there we go.
the red is going to be a lot stronger than the blue. Blue is kind of, do you want to take this back apart? You know, red is, you better get some heat to take it back apart.
Are you sure?
They also have green, right?
They have green is even stronger than red.
You don't want this to come apart.
Yeah, red, I really only use red on, like, say, the rear pulley bolts, the rear brake disc bolts, the compensator. We use red over there, and there's red on the clutch hub bolt, or clutch hub nut. But really, pretty much everywhere else we use blue. We get a lot of bikes that come in, like these caliper bolts right here. People will put anti-seize on them. Not sure why you would want anti-seize anywhere near your brake pads, but.
You're trying to have fun, okay?
Huh?
Good reference. Okay.
Well, I mean, you know. So we've about got all these support bolts out of here. We'll pop the oil pump bolts out. Oil pump bolts are a lot longer. And then actually, when we get in here deeper, whoever had that question about the oil pump, I can show them what we were talking about. Okay, so we got all those out. So now we've got some 4 oil pump bolts. As you can tell, these are quite a bit longer. See that? Notice my fancy gloves, my nice white gloves. Can't get black gloves this day and age. Kind of get what you get. So now we're ready to pull this support plate out of here. And it should just kind of, see that, how it just kind of broke loose off of that. So this washer right here, that's our cam spacer. We'll have to check cam spacing when we go back together. That has to do with chain alignment. We'll talk about that when we go back together. So this is a support plate. So that, they call it a cam support plate because the end of the camshaft rides right here. So you see those pockets right there? That has to do with oil pressure. Those pockets, the oil feeds through there. The oil feeds through there. There's channels cut in this plate that feeds everywhere else. I'm gonna put this over here. So there's our cam. Cam just kind of sits in there, it'll free spin. So that's what we're taking out. That's a stock 114 cam. Clean some oil off of it. We might be able to see some differences in it.
Yeah, you can tell by the lobe. You can see the difference.
Yeah, in the lobes. So if we stand this one up, we stand this one up. Okay, just by looking here to here and here to here. This one kind of comes to a point, whereas this one's kind of rounded off, right? It's a little flatter. So what that's gonna do is that valve is gonna be open longer, okay, than say this one right here. And it's put the same way on each one of those lobes. And when we're holding an intake valve open longer, that means we can get more air and fuel through this throttle body, through this head, into this cylinder before we close it, bring the piston up to set it on fire.
What can, is that like a 745? What can?
This is a 517.
Oh, okay, I can't mind. So
Yeah, that says 517.
What is the stock?
You know what? The stock one doesn't even have a number on it, I don't think. I mean, there's a number stamped in it, but it doesn't tell. They don't tell us what those are.
I do that a lot with a lot of shit.
Yeah. The stock cams very rarely have any markings on them. But yeah, you can definitely tell just by the shape of the lobe which one is going to give you more.
Why don't you guys change that cam holder like to an aftermarket with a bigger chain tensioner on it while you're doing it?
Some of them we do.
Like, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. I hit 1,000.
Yeah, I have done. I've done some S&S. Yeah.
Why don't they do it on this? Why you guys
Well,
do
this one here, with it being a Harley build and keeping the warranty and stuff like that, I don't know.
Hell, that'd be a better thing to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if they would like that. Once your warranty's up or something, you know what I mean, and you go in and start doing motor work, you might get by with that, and they may never know either. You know that it has, unless you have an issue. No, well, I'm trying to think. Unless you have an issue with the cam compartment, and you're at a dealer somewhere and they rip into it, like, hey, that's S&S. You're you're out of luck.
I just don't see why you wouldn't do it. It wouldn't hurt the warranty to be better.
Right. Yeah. So this is our oil pump right here. So we're gonna pull it out. So you got the feed gears are over on this side, the scavenge gears over on this side. Okay, those are our gears. I'm just gonna set this down. It's gonna leak everywhere. So this is the piece right here that whoever it was that was asking the question about the oil pressure, it's this piece right here that Harley has changed. And this one will have to be changed because the one that we use now has got like a little nub on it. See how that kind of comes to a point? There's a little nub in the casting on the new one. And what they've done is they've changed these pockets. They've changed the location of them. They've kind of moved them around. If I had a new one, I think Zach might have used the last one yesterday on that stage 2 we did. But we'll install it when we go back together with this. And I think it has to do with pulling oil out of the bottom end of the motor.
Is that where they were having that problem with inmates when they first had that oil pump problem?
Right.
It was pulling it out of the bottom?
Yeah, getting it out.
Is that the part
Yeah.
they reachanneled the oil?
Yeah, and this one has got a gasket on the back of it. The original ones didn't have a gasket on the back of here. And I think that it sits right up there against that bearing. And I think they've actually, and I probably should say it being on camera or whatever, but I think they've had issues with like pressures.
Yeah.
You know, like negative crankcase pressures and stuff.
Metal.
And you know, you put that seal on there and you can help eliminate some of that. But the main thing is that they changed the location and size of some of these pockets, you know, to get more oil out of there.
So you have to update that one? Or?
Yes, this one will have to be updated.
So.
Humming noise at a certain RPM too on the old ones that didn't have
Yep.
that seal on the backside.
Yep.
Humming coming out of there.
Yep.
On the backside because they vibrate.
Yep. And then there's that inner cam bearing. I don't know if you can see that in there or not, but you can't see the rollers all the way around. You can see how there's like a cage in between the rollers. And so the bearing that we're going to install there, the Torrington's got the bearings going all the way around.
And on this particular job, like you said, when Chris pulled out that oil pump, that'll actually be covered under the warranty.
Right.
While we're doing the upgrade. I don't know if you mentioned that before, but that'll actually be covered because we're doing this upgrade, and we'll put the latest and greatest oil pump in there.
And that's about it for this assembly, I think.
Yeah, for
I
today.
think- yeah.
We're
What time is it?
right at
2.5 hours.
See that? We did pretty good.
you know. But as you can see, what goes into it, the teardown process, and it was a couple hours beforehand getting the bike ready to where we were starting this morning. Next week we're going to start with the obviously putting everything on.
Probably start at the cam compartment actually.
Yep.
Put the
Start
cams, get the cam compartment back. We'll probably go back together and reverse order a disassembly.
Yep. So
Now what we'll do is I've got some plastic bags back there, and I'll take a plastic bag and I'll cover it all up so that nothing flies in there, nothing gets dropped in there.
we leaving this here? Yeah.
Gonna leave it out on the floor?
Yeah, so we're gonna leave this out on the floor. So if you want to stop by, you can see everything assembled here. The bike will stay right here in the lift. Like you said, everything's gonna be covered up. And then next Saturday, once again, 11 o'clock, we're gonna continue our build, and then we'll go from there.
Most of us will be here.
Most of us will be here. So,
Just throwing shade all over the place today, Mr. Booth.
No, it's good. It's good. We got it. It's fun. I enjoy doing. Most of the guys in the shop, if not all of them, enjoy doing work like this. This is fun stuff. Taking a bike from 75 horse and 117 torque to. It's going to be really interesting to see what we get.
and we want to, this way it's very informative to the customers. They can see actually what goes into the build, how much time goes into it, exactly the step-by-step process. We did a video of what the horsepower and torque was before we even started. That'll be uploaded to our Facebook page later on. And then at the end, we're going to do the dyno pull again and see where we wind up with the everything done. So,
Yep.
and like I said, if you have any other demonstrations or builds that you'd like to see, I know once again a lot of people want to see the infotainment system. You know, hopefully we could get something live on that and show you how to work that infotainment system, because there's a lot of details in that people always ask about. So, but if you have any other jobs you want to see done, you know, drop us a note on Facebook, hit us up at hdfindy.com, and we'll see if we can get that done for you. Anything else, Chris?
I don't think so. Thanks to Kyle for letting us use his bike.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
So, hope Kyle is out there watching.
Yeah.